In 2018, a new game called Hytale exploded onto the scene, promising millions that they'd be the Minecraft sequel that Mojang could never make. But today, 6 years and 60 million views later, Hytale has been cancelled, and Hypixel Studios is shutting down for good, leaving the world wondering, what happened to Hytale? Well, it's a long story, so let's take it back to the start. When Hytale was first announced back in December 2018, Minecraft was at an all-time low. The updates were boring, minigames got stale, and people were moving on to other games. The world needed something special, a game that was new and unique but could still keep Minecraft's simple charm. That was what Hytale promised, the perfect Minecraft sequel that went all in on mods, movies, and millions of players to join you on your adventures. And with the legendary Riot Games at the helm, they were all set for success. But when the internet was exploding with excitement, Hytale went silent. For years, all we would get was an update or two every year, usually to deliver some bad news. By 2022, players were giving up hope, and call me Merlin the Wizard because even I predicted Hytale's death 3 years ago. Now, with this new announcement, the funeral is finally here, but they haven't actually told us why they're giving up. The official announcement is short, vague, and doesn't really go into the problems that got us here. So allow me to take over. The one thing that's pretty much been clear from the start is that Hytale never knew what it wanted to be. When Hytale was first announced in 2018, the selling points were servers, minigames, modding, adventure, animation, custom characters, watch parties, world editors, and movie directing, all alongside the normal gameplay loop of farming, fighting, mining, and building, standard sandbox stuff. No game in the history of ever has accomplished all that. Even blockbusters like GTA 5 or CSGO might have 2 or 3 of those, tops, and they let the community handle the rest. Hytale tried to do everything, which meant they actually did nothing. But not only did they go way too hard, way too early, but they gave up and started over, twice. In 2020, a few months after being bought by Riot Games, here's what they had to say about Hytale's progress. Almost every part of the game, including many aspects of gameplay that have already been revealed, has been taken back to the drawing board, rethought, and in some cases overhauled. They redid the entire game, and by 2022, they had decided to redevelop the whole game in C++ instead of Java, meaning they were starting over again. And that last one was the real kicker. See, changing the story, the combat, the character design, that's one thing. But recoding the entire game is a huge task, and they decided to do it 7 years into development without releasing anything beforehand. That was the absolute worst possible decision they could have made. They could have done this well, it's been done before. Just a few years ago, RuneScape did exactly what Hytale tried to do. They recoded their entire game from Java to C++. But the difference is that RuneScape actually released a game first. Hytale, on the other hand, had kept their community waiting almost a decade with nothing to show for it. They just delayed everything even further, not only for the players who had still never had a taste of Hytale, but even their own team of artists, level designers, and playtesters that couldn't work because they didn't have a game to work on. What's worse though is that Hytale never told anyone about these problems. Let's take another look at their shutdown announcement. Frankly, it doesn't say much, but it does tell us how Hypixel Studios still doesn't really understand their own problems, even after those problems killed Hytale. They claim that the bar kept rising and Hytale just couldn't keep up, but that's just not true. Yes, Hytale was incredibly ambitious, and we can't pretend that the gaming world hasn't changed a lot since Hytale was announced. We'll get to that in a sec. But with Hytale, they were the ones raising their own bar, not the genre, not even their fans. I mean, seriously, take a look at their blog. Almost every post is detailing some minute change to a character design or the almost imperceptible differences between the old and new graphic styles. But despite posting this themselves, they pretended like these changes weren't even happening. Every update always said they were more confident than ever. Things were going perfectly as planned. The game is right around the corner. And every time the game would get pushed back. First to 2021, then to 2023, now to never. They could have taken a step back, trimmed the fat off Hytale, got the help of their very dedicated community to figure out what the game needed and what could wait. They could have tried to release something, whether that was their mini-games, or their MMO, or their survival, or even just their movie and animation tools for people to make their own worlds. But they didn't do any of that. They pretended that everything was fine when it wasn't, and ultimately, they found themselves atop a skyscraper of expectations with no way out but to come crashing to the ground. But Hytale itself wasn't the only problem. The world around Hytale was changing. See, when the Hytale trailer released, everything they promised was everything that the Minecraft community, and really gaming as a whole, had been wanting. Hytale's huge community could replace Minecraft's dead servers. Hytale would welcome modders instead of ruining their work like Minecraft 1.13 did. Instead of turning to buggy, confusing mods for your replays, animation, custom worlds, you'd have it all right there inside the game, official and polished from day one. In 2018, those promises meant everything. But think of how far Minecraft has come since 2018. There's more players, community support, better servers, better mods, and so many ways to add things like animation or custom items to your maps. Minecraft now is what Hytale wanted to be then, and in a lot of ways, you could say the same thing about Roblox or Fortnite or any number of these multiplayer giants that thrive on their communities. The truth is, even if Hytale did come out, it wouldn't have much to offer. Maybe better graphics or story or a nicer survival experience? But everything else they promised us already exists now, and Hypixel Studios weren't the ones that made it happen. But in the end, this disaster actually might not be Hypixel's fault. After all, they're not the only ones working with Hytale. Let's talk about Riot Games. As you all probably know, Riot Games is a huge name in the gaming industry. Valorant, League of Legends, Arcane, they're some of the biggest names out there, and Hytale was supposed to be right there with them. But Riot Games has changed a lot since 2020, and not in a good way. See, for a while, they were doing great. The world was in a pandemic, and with everyone stuck at home, there were more people playing their games than ever. They released Valorant and Arcane, hired thousands of employees, and made billions of dollars. But by 2022, things started taking a turn for the worse. For starters, they lost a massive lawsuit. The details are a little too heavy for this video, but it ended up costing them $100 million, which is a hefty chunk of change. They delayed their next big MMO and canceled their fighting game, Pool Party. And of course, as the pandemic ended and people started touching grass, they fired 600 employees to try and cut costs and save the company from burning out. That didn't make a healthy environment for Hytale to grow in, and I would be shocked if Riot's problems didn't rub off on them. In fact, around the time that Riot was firing people, a lot of important people left Hytale. Hytale's former producers, game leads, technical leads, and engineers ended up quitting their jobs, leaving Hytale behind, and joining Arcanite Games, a new studio from Hypixel's founder, Simon. Yes, the shutdown announcement has nothing but love for Riot Games, and I don't doubt that Riot has been supportive of Hytale this whole time. But Riot Games is a business, and one that's had it pretty rough recently. The pressure was on, the expectations grew higher, and Hytale still wasn't ready, so they killed it. In the end, Hytale was doomed from the start, and that only became more and more obvious over time. But still, I'd like to imagine that some alternate universe got the Hytale we were promised all these years. The perfect, polished sandbox game that we deserve. Then again, maybe we already have it. Thank you for watching and have a good one. Peace, peace.